In a tense encounter, a seasoned officer's prejudices come to light when he aggressively harasses a black FBI agent, dismissing her as just another newcomer. Little does he know, this agent is not only with the FBI, but she's also leading the very investigation into his department. As the officer's rude remarks spiral into deeper conflict, the stakes grow higher. What he thinks is just another routine confrontation turns out to be anything but. His career, his reputation, everything he's worked for is on the line. How will he react when the truth comes crashing down? Will his actions be his downfall? Stick around to find out what happens next in this explosive story. The officer, Detective Marks, had built his career on power and intimidation, relying on his position to get away with things others couldn't. His deep-seated racism had never been questioned, until now. He'd never imagined a black agent would infiltrate his precinct, let alone be in charge of a high-stakes investigation he was desperate to keep buried. Agent Harper, sharp and calm under pressure, had been quietly gathering intel on corruption within his ranks for months. Her unshakable professionalism masked a quiet determination to bring justice, even if it meant going up against her own. The tension between them was palpable, like a ticking time bomb. Marks couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but he never expected the woman he belittled to be the one who'd expose everything. As the days passed, the friction between Marks and Harper only intensified. Marks, fueled by his ego and blind prejudice, continued to undermine Harper at every turn. He questioned her authority in front of her team, make snide comments, and try to dismiss her insights. Each remark an attempt to reassert control over a situation he no longer understood. Harper, meanwhile, stayed cool, never letting his insults crack her exterior. She had a mission, and nothing, not even his ignorance, would distract her from it. But the pressure was mounting. Harper's investigation was inching closer to the heart of a much bigger problem. Unbeknownst to Marks, at the same time, Marks was closing in on her. He had begun to piece together that Harper was more than she appeared. His suspicions grew, and he knew it was only a matter of time before she made her move. He was prepared to do whatever it took to stop her, even if it meant crossing lines he'd never dared to before. His desperation had reached a breaking point. Both of them were on a collision course, neither willing to back down. The stage was set, and everything was hanging in the balance. As the tension reached its peak, something unexpected happened. Harper had just finished a covert meeting with one of her trusted sources, someone deep inside the department. As she walked back to her car, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an anonymous number, nothing unusual at first, until she read the words. Asterisk, you're being watched. Be careful who you trust. Asterisk. Her heart skipped a beat. She'd been careful, meticulous. She had no idea who could be onto her, but the feeling of being hunted was overwhelming. She quickly scanned the area, but there was no one in sight. Shaken, she stepped into her car and tried to calm her nerves, but the message gnawed at her. Who could it be? Someone within her team? Or worse, was Marks playing a deeper game, one where he had already anticipated her every move? Meanwhile, Marks was having his own crisis. He'd learned that one of his closest allies, someone he had trusted completely, had been feeding information to Harper. The betrayal cut deep, and he now realized that the walls were closing in on him faster than he'd anticipated. The corruption in his department wasn't just a threat to his career. It was a ticking time bomb that could destroy everything he had built. And the worst part, he had no idea how far it had spread. Every day, the weight of the investigation seemed heavier, and he began to fear that even if he somehow escaped Harper's grasp, the truth would eventually come out anyway. The more Marks panicked, the more dangerous he became. In his paranoia, he made a rash decision. He ordered a quiet surveillance operation on Harper. He needed to know everything about her, who she talked to, where she went, what she knew. But little did he know, his move would push the situation to a breaking point. Harper, still reeling from the anonymous warning, had no idea that Marks had escalated the stakes. She kept digging, but now with even more caution, sensing that her every step might be monitored. Her trust in her team was beginning to fray. Could one of them be the leak? Was someone feeding information to Marks, or worse, trying to sabotage her? The paranoia was starting to creep in. She needed to get ahead of the game. Then the final twist hit like a punch to the gut. The lead officer, the one who had cuffed Marks, turned to Harper with a look of grim determination. "You're under arrest, Agent Harper." Confusion swept over her. "What? You can't be serious." The officer held up a folder, the same folder Harper had seen earlier, the one with the damning evidence about the department's corruption. But it wasn't just Mark's department at the center of it. Harper's name was on the documents, too. She was implicated in a web of illegal activity that no one could have anticipated. As the realization set in, Harper's blood ran cold. It wasn't just Marks who had betrayed her. It was the very people she had trusted most. The officers moved in, but before they could make a move, Harper's informant suddenly lunged forward, tackling one of them to the ground. In the chaos, she managed to break free, running through the halls, her mind spinning with disbelief. She had no choice now. She wasn't just fighting for justice. She was fighting for her own survival. The game had changed. The investigation, the corruption, everything had turned upside down. And as Harper disappeared into the night, she realized that the truth was far more twisted than she could have ever imagined. The final question lingered in the air. Who had orchestrated this betrayal? And why had they chosen her as the scapegoat? The answers would come later. For now, the story was far from over. As the days passed, Harper went underground, evading the very people she had once worked alongside. The investigation she had started wasn't over. It was just beginning. She knew the system was broken, but now she was part of it, hiding in plain sight, gathering information in the shadows. What started as a mission to expose corruption had turned into a desperate race to clear her name. It wasn't until weeks later that the truth came out. A high-ranking official within the department had orchestrated the entire scheme, framing Harper to cover their own tracks. Marks, a pawn in their game, was arrested, and those who betrayed her were finally exposed. Harper walked away, knowing the fight wasn't over. But one thing was clear: she had uncovered a truth bigger than herself, and she was just getting started.